Hello, my dear friend. Welcome back to another conversation on the Founder Stories podcast. I am excited to have you here today to listen to the story of a great friend of mine and a great friend of the show. His name is Dan. He is the co-founder of a venture capital fund called Vine Ventures, together with another dear friend, Eric Reiner. So I'm excited to have Dan here with us today to share with us the origin story of Vine Ventures, his own personal story of how he got into venture capital, and everything else in between. So please sit tight and enjoy this conversation with Dan. I want to start off with your origin story.
Yeah, from birth,
Exactly. And, specifically, how do you feel like your upbringing and the values that your parents have instilled in you from a young age influence you till today, and the experience you've had through your childhood, adolescence, and teens have shaped you into who you are?
Yeah. Well, if I was being like very satirical, I think a lot of who we are is, we could just like shatter the facade and be like, did you have any say in like what you became? Or is it entirely like a function of like who you were, what you were exposed to as a child? And, but I don't know, I do think we have some agency. For me specifically, so my parents are from the former Soviet Union. They immigrated to Israel, from Israel to the US, to Canada, to back to the US, mostly driven by my father. He was a professor at Technion, then worked in NASA, then became a professor again, etc. But that exposed me to people that come from very different backgrounds. The people in Haifa are different from like Williamsburg, Virginia, Montreal, Canada, Cleveland, Ohio, and it gave me a sense of general interest in other people and in open-mindedness that those people might be making decisions differently, etc. And I think that also put me in a place now working with founders where I'm like very open-minded to people from different walks of life, how that influences them, what their decisions are for starting companies, etc. Probably most importantly, from like a work ethic perspective, is just that my parents were immigrants. Right. And so the most important thing was like your work ethic. And that is a consistent thread through everything that I've done. It's important for me to be like personally very passionate about what I'm doing. And so far as I'm passionate, whatever I'm doing is going to get my utmost attention. That also means I can only focus on a few things at a time. But yeah.
Why, do you have ADD?
There are other people who I would say on our team have like a healthy level of ADD. I think like we could call it neurodivergent. I give it a very positive connotation. Maybe some would have like a negative connotation to it, but there are strengths, and there are strengths in how people on the team complement each other, thanks to someone's ability to focus relative to another person's desire to be everywhere and all at once, and kind of have their phone blowing up at any given moment with like an ask for help or sending an interesting founder that they'd want us to meet.
Interesting. Was it hard moving around as a child so much?
Yes. Although there was never really a choice.
Right.
I was never offered the choice of like, do you want to do this? It just seemed like something that was happening in our lives. As an adult, it's given me like, I don't have much fear about moving to a different place. I just feel like I can find a group of friends and adapt pretty quickly, which has allowed me, we're now sitting in New York, but we also obviously have offices in San Francisco and in Tel Aviv. To move to those places and work with my teammates when first starting up those offices, and that's really powerful. And there's been a lot of like personal growth, even as an adult, of continuing to travel to new places and doing business in new places. I'm sure you experienced the same thing. I mean, doing business in Israel was a fairly new thing for you, I would imagine. Or maybe you had done business professionally in Israel before starting your fund.
No, it was definitely, there was a certain sense of familiarity, being a little bit familiar with the culture and with the types of people there. But business for me was definitely new over there.
Yeah. How so?
How so? It's a good question. In truth, I never thought much into it. But the few things I could say what I do like. And I guess in the beginning, maybe it was a bit hard to adapt to. But in the end, and right now, like I truly appreciate it, and it's the way I try to conduct business in general, was one, operating in Israel, you have to be super, super blunt.
Yeah.
Because people are going to tell you exactly what they feel. They're going to tell you exactly, what's happening on the table. They're not going to sugarcoat anything. Like if you operate anywhere else, in the States or any other country, there's a lot of sugarcoating.
Yes.
They won't necessarily, they're going to go make a right turn, a left turn until they finally end up at the point what they want to tell you. And when you're operating, let's say, for example, in Israel, they're going to tell you straight up, okay, this is what's going on.
Yep.
You provide value or you don't provide value. You're good, you're not good. You're in the deal, you're not in the deal, whatever it is. So that in the beginning, was, I guess, a little bit, took some time to adapt to, but something that I truly embraced and really appreciate right now. And I guess it's like any ecosystem, when you're breaking into it, there's multiple levels. Where, for example, if you're an investor, first you're getting not the top tier deals. And then as you make some investments and you provide value, then you make it to the next level. And then you provide more value and your name gets around more and you get to the next level and to the next level and to the next level. And for me, I guess that took some time. We're breaking through the multiple levels. So I'll give you an example. Before I started investing for 3 years, I was providing free value to any single founder I could get a hold of, right? No matter what the favor was, I would do whatever it took to make that favor happen. And so I was able to build up my network through, took 2-3 years, through doing the podcast focus here in Israel, through providing value and help to any founder that I would ask. And eventually when I started my fund, I already had that network. But in the beginning to break into the ecosystem, I guess it would be like anywhere else. You have to do whatever it takes, you know?
I think 2 to 3 years, saying that to somebody, today people are very keen for like the quick win.
Yeah.
Putting in like 2-3 years, et cetera, of time into something in order to only just begin to see the benefits and only then to be told that it's like, then it's just as equally, if not more competitive at this level than like the 2 to 3 years earlier, can feel like a punch in the gut. But you've continued pushing through it.
I mean, you know how it is. You're an investor. It's like in life in general, it's just you constantly got to push through whatever is in personal, professional, especially in venture, because it's very, very easy to become obsolete in venture capital.
Agreed.
Very.
Completely agree. Yes. But that is also the opportunity for new firms, right? And I think the unique thing about Israel as well is it's proven out to be such a lucrative market for venture capitalists in a certain band of exit outcomes. Mm-hmm. I think there's yet another band of exit outcomes that people would like to see more Israeli companies consistently be in. But certainly because like that's such a good sort of talent pool and population to back. No VC, when you come into the Israeli ecosystem, is just going to slice you off a piece of that cake and say, here you go. But that's what I mean in the like personal growth for me. It sounds like you experienced the same thing where just repeatedly being told no over and over again, or why you're not a fit in this market, or why people question your ability to win in this market. Puts a lot of hair on the chest. And I'm a very competitive guy. I think you're a competitive person. Just makes you want to prove people wrong.
Right.
And the other side of those no's is that they can quickly change to yeses once you start proving yourself. Right. So once you win that competitive deal, and certainly that's the story for Vine of how we like got ourselves on the map, was like winning highly competitive deals.
Interesting. What other stuff have you experienced personal growth in?
Wow. Probably most impactful for me was 7 years ago and learning how to better communicate.
Okay.
And this like, going back to your original question of how did you grow up, growing up around like Soviet immigrant parents, and you could talk to like a lot of kids of Soviet immigrant parents, like doesn't instill like the most emotive communication, like words like words like I love you, etc. And those there's a particular like vocabulary that's required to learn around what your needs are and what your values are. And it's actually difficult to communicate in that way unless you learn that vocabulary. And so about like 7-8 years ago, I got that like feedback in a personal relationship, and I went on a whole journey of trying to find like to improve and find those like words to express needs and values. And in a professional context, that's helped me tremendously as well. Because now I'm actually able to demonstrate and express like real excitement around something that's happening around me, or disappointment or frustration, etc. The key is obviously, as you know, a lot of the people we interact with are entrepreneurs, is how you relay that feedback in order to instill trust, mutuality, and actually have any sort of effect.
Interesting. What career did your parents have set out for you? As immigrant parents? Your parents must have had like some idea what they had for you.
The classic like be a lawyer or a doctor. I think if your parents grow up in a communist society, the idea that you are going to pursue a career in financial services or anything tangential to it is sort of like antithetical to like financial services being like centralized in a government entity. So that definitely took some explaining.
So how'd you make your way into venture then?
I had experience, I had done investment banking, I had done private equity, and I think private equity was stimulating from a financial engineering perspective. But if I'm honest about like what brings me the most joy in like working with teams and getting exposure to different types of people, it felt to me like it would be a lot more stimulating to be a part in an investor in companies that were growing very rapidly, as opposed to ones in which kind of like the day-to-day was around how to stabilize margins and improve margins, which meant laying people off and spending less time with the people that you think you would enjoy spending time with. That's not to say that there's not like a place for that, like in a free market economy. Is just like how you want to spend your day to day. And you and I get to spend it with people. We're very fortunate to spend it with people who are building products for which there's hopefully a lot of demand, and consequently growth, and consequently the need to bring more people into the team.
Yeah, I think being in venture is a privilege.
Yeah,
it's an absolute privilege. I mean, I think it's one of the best jobs in the world.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Though, if you have some bad years, if you have some bad investments, people felt a particular type of way, I feel like, about venture coming out of 2022. And now we've kind of like, I mean, that's the power of like human beings, like quickly forget that and set that aside. And now we're back to the boom years. Yeah. So I think there's also an importance of like in this job, not getting ever too high or too low. I think that's a powerful force for founders as well. Keeping yourself steady.
Yeah, I saw a line somewhere that says, nothing's ever as good as it seems, and nothing is ever as bad as it seems. So it always ends up somewhere in the middle. Yeah. Yep. So let's talk about Vine for a second. Vine Ventures, you had Fund 1, $60 million. Fund 2, currently right now, 140. Who knows what will be next? You guys recently made some big key hires to the team. You've done incredible. You have 3 locations: New York, San Francisco, and Israel. But let's go back to the origin story of Vine Ventures on how Vine got formed between you and Eric. Like, how did that partnership come about? What were the initial steps you guys took? How was the fundraising for Fund 1? and the challenges that came together with that, and then we'll make our way subsequently we'll make our way through to current date.
Yeah. Look, the relationship between co-founders is such an important one. Our relationship is 8 years in the making.
Wow.
And as you say, like, we're constantly evolving in it. I mean, Eric's got 3 kids now. Like, I'm engaged to be married. Like, we've changed ourselves over time, but the continuing aspect is like each of us always being there for the other, and giving the time and space for what the other person needs, right, in making a decision. And throughout those 8 years, what is so clear is that the yin and yang of how we operate, and how our 2 brains work are very complementary. And that has thankfully proven to be very powerful and attractive to winning with entrepreneurs, to attracting people to work with us at Vine, and to bringing amazing institutions in as limited partners to back us. And it certainly was not the 2 of us in building Vine Ventures. I don't think was an inevitability or an obvious. And so the fact that we are where we are today as a firm comes with a lot of gratitude to the people that were the first to take a bet on us. Without limited partners to give you capital to invest, and without founders who say to other founders, yeah, these guys are going to work their butts off for you. You should really work with them, and you should not just work with them as a small component of who else you're taking money from, but as one of the 2 most meaningful like positions, a lead or a co-lead. You can't do it without that.
Who was the first person to take a bet on you guys?
So I'll keep their name. I'll keep them anonymized, but effectively like a very successful crossover investor at one of the largest like funds in the world, and someone who Eric had built a really close relationship with. And that is a common thing about Eric too. He builds intimate relationships with people, and those people see a spark and want to be part of that. Yeah.
So this person was your first believer in you guys in Vine.
Yeah. And we started raising Vine Fund 1 during COVID.
Okay.
So the deck, like the initial deck I was building in like end of 2019, we went out to like our first, big LP meeting in Baltimore in like February. And as we were in the Baltimore train station, we got the initial docs from this person. And I remember like that distinct feeling of like, wow, we're like in business. Yeah. And then shortly thereafter, like everything shut down.
And so how did that affect your fundraising?
It certainly did. In that time, there are people who, may have said they wanted to back us for some amount. And, because of a large drawdown during COVID, the initial months, now they're saying, hey, we'll give you a quarter of what we initially thought they might commit, or maybe nothing at all. And that can be rattling. But we made a very specific decision to draw a line in the sand, and say, hey, we're going to do our first close in June 2020. And if you're with us, say so. Right. And that first close was around 16 or $17 million. And then we marched onwards for another like 6 months of fundraising, to raise the remainder of the fund. And that first fund was 53 million in total. 53, right.
So you started at essentially also your investing that period of time was during the height of COVID, when everything was way overvalued.
Yeah. It was becoming way overvalued.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you guys operate then? Like what was?
So, I think, or we know right, that all venture capitalists sort of made this mistake, which is investing at high-priced valuations relative to traction at that moment in time, right? That's what you're asking about. And for a pre-seed and seed fund, the mistake I think we particularly honed into is that we would invest at reasonable valuations at the pre-seed and seed. Like that band of entry was still somewhere between 15 and 30 post. But the mistake for a pre-seed and seed fund was subsequently following on at at prices around $1 billion with revenue that was not reflective of like a 10 times ARR multiple or something close to it. And so the learning from that is certainly, well, why did that happen to begin with?
Okay.
Why that happens to begin with is because you spend the like decade or two prior learning that it's very rare for companies to reach that valuation. And once you have a company that's doing well enough to attract those types of investors, there's merit to doubling down and tripling down, and compounding into what you believe is a winner. And I think that kind of like first principle and how accurate that is was rattled after we saw basically the contraction that happened in 2022 and the correction in 2022 and 2023. So now we're very conscious of that. And I think every LP is like doing their checks of like how is that a learning that I'm just sharing with you? Or is that something that you're actually like implementing in how you look at the follow-on rounds in any of your, quote unquote, doing well on paper in the kind of like league tables of top 50 most exciting companies? If you have those in the portfolio, like, are you continuing to follow on at those prices or are you doing something differently? Like you said you would.
Interesting. So what other mistakes did you guys make in Fund 1?
I would say otherwise, like I'm very satisfied with like the teammates we brought on. Like Demeryn was our first hire out in the Bay. He earned the right and earned the promotion to partner a couple of years ago. He's been a phenomenal teammate. That went exceptionally well. The desire immediately, like in the midst of Fund 1, was like, how soon can we stand up an office in Israel? And you don't really have the ability to do that with the fund size that we had. Like going to like your second location, say if we're like New York, SF, get to Tel Aviv, that became possible with Fund 2. So if I could do it over, we would have had like boots on the ground in Israel even sooner. But that wasn't in the cards until we had the resources to do it. Yeah. And kind of like you said with your own experience, like it's not so much of a mistake as it is just the reality of like, as you establish yourself and you become more well-known in your ecosystems, by nature, you should be getting access to higher quality opportunities. And so, I just wish like the quality of opportunities and things we see now were also at the caliber that we were seeing in 2020. But like, make no mistake, like the quality of opportunities we're seeing now are in even other parts of like the universe than what we were seeing in 2020. Right. I'm sure that's the case for you too.
Yeah, I think so too. I definitely think so. You mentioned that when you initially set up the fund, you and Eric decided that you're only going to co-lead on lead and not going to follow.
Yes. Yeah.
That must have been, that's a very big decision to make.
That is true. It felt like the natural thing to do coming from the firms that we had respectively been at, right. Where, Eric was at Insight, I was at TA, and that seat and that fight, because all of these rounds are highly competitive, is something that was like very natural to us. So we felt it was important to continue on that strategy. we were up for the fight. Yeah.
So how did you guys earn your right to that?
And I guess the other thing to say is just like part of the reward of this job and like why I do it. I won't speak for everyone on the team, but I think this is, consensus at Vine. Like, yes, we're quote unquote investors, but the joy that you feel, or I feel, or I know for people at Vine feel, is like actually working closely with our entrepreneurs. And to part of earning the seat to work closely with entrepreneurs is, oftentimes just by definition of like, you're the co-leader lead. I, the entrepreneur, chose to work closest with you. And suddenly you're helping people problem solve and kind of like in their most vulnerable moments, figure out their way in a tough situation. And that's personally very rewarding for me, aside from like, setting aside just like owning, however many like hundreds of thousands of shares in their company.
Right.
And we have a particular way we like to exercise this sport of investing. And I say sport because a lot of the people at Vine used to be collegiate athletes. And so the way we exercise this sport is like trying to give ourselves the highest likelihood chance of winning. And as well, give the entrepreneur the highest likelihood chance of winning against the competition in their industry. And this isn't rocket science, but a lot of what winning looks like at the pre-seed and seed stage for an entrepreneur, when they're so early and it's just an idea and they're still fleshing it out, it's how do they accelerate the time to getting to that kind of like, I won't say final, but like near ready shape of the product. And especially to getting into the next stage of the quote unquote, like venture capital factory line, the Series A, the Series B, and becoming a public company, it is like demonstrating the ability to scale with customers. So we're very, very oriented on helping entrepreneurs get their first like dozen to 2 dozen customers. And we're very adept at doing so. Like, this company, Mia, who you just met in our office, the founder, they're building they're starting with voice AI for auto dealerships. Mm-hmm. So their bigger picture is eventually to become an agentic layer on top of the underlying dealer management system that these dealerships use. But I can't say that we were the foremost world experts on auto dealerships before investing in this company. But as part of earning our right to co-lead this seed round with ENIAC, we got them to one of the largest Honda Acura dealerships in this entire country, which is based out in Queens. The owner of that dealership is a big influencer in the industry and actually came on the cap table. And we got them a couple other large dealerships in Texas, where the owners also invested in the company and became customers. Yeah. And we're talking about ACVs like as large as like 50 to 100K. And we also brought in one of the largest industry influencers, the car dealership guy, to angel invest in the business and to promote them in the industry. And what does that ultimately look like, or what does that mean? That means I'm vetting the opportunity and getting into a shared reality with the entrepreneur about what they're building, while at the same time selling what Vine can offer to the founder. And so my main point here is that like we have the ability to rinse and repeat that across a variety of industries, and getting into a shared reality with the founder around the obstacles they're going to face based on real customer feedback and bringing them customers to accelerate their thinking is how we build such a close relationship and rapport with entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So walk me through a due diligence process.
Yeah.
Like due diligence process and subsequently the investing.
Yeah. Well, the due diligence process will be rapid. Like it is 7 to 10 days. And if I'm acknowledging that we're doing this level of work to win a competitive pre-seed or seed round, that means one of the most important things is just determining what number of opportunities, what number of founders we're going to run the whole gamut of those introductions with. And so it starts with that first meeting and really deciding, is this something that like will merit that dedication of time? Because it's also often, I mean, it's almost consistently never just me. Right. We win as a team. And so we have a WhatsApp group into which like anytime any of us on the team needs something, whether it's an introduction to customers, potential hire for a portfolio company, et cetera, anytime we're running one of our playbooks, like it's the whole team involved. And so that's 7 to 10 days. And I'm trying to spend, as you know, as much time with that entrepreneur as I can to get to know each other. Like ideally, we've had like a couple months of like they were ideating and we met them super early, right, et cetera. But sometimes that's not the case. And so, yeah, how do you get a good sense of who a founder is and what they're like to work with in a short period of time? The best way I can think about it is to get as much time on the calendar as I possibly can with them. Get on those customer calls together with them, see how they, you know, I've obviously like gotten them into the house, but how do they walk around the rooms in the house? How do they take in feedback? You know, same question you asked me, like, what was life like for them growing up? What are the chips on their shoulders? What keeps, like, who in their life do they have to prove something to? Yeah. What's their spirituality?
Who in your life do you have to prove something to?
I think myself. So I was a runner in college, cross country, track and field, 10K, 5K, mile. And you're just measured by your most recent personal best. And so I'm always trying to prove to myself that I can be a better version of an investor than I was like the quarter before or in the years before. I'm trying to prove to myself that I can be a better teammate to my partners than I have been, and a better company operator. Like Vine Ventures is a company, and we're evolving in so many ways. And as you said, you have to stay relevant in this industry. You're always thinking of like, what's your competitive advantage? How can you expand that? And that's part of running a company. And that's something I'm trying to prove to myself that I can be better at. Yeah.
How do you measure yourself? Is it through, besides feedback from other people, from your peers, from your teammates?
Yeah.
But, you know, what are you doing to measure yourself to see how far you've gone?
Yeah. One of the things that's very interesting to me in terms of measuring the effect I'm having is how much more open people are willing to be with me. So I know I've like really shown up for a founder in a very important moment for them, and delivered them like a really positive experience. If in subsequent interactions and meetings, they're opening up to me more about a variety of things. Could be personal, could just be professional, related to the goings on in their companies, anything they need to address with regards to like their own teammates and employees, et cetera, like even their co-founders, difficult decisions. So yeah, the more they're willing to open up for me, the more I feel like I'm doing a good job there. Yeah.
Right. I like that. So one of the things that I was speaking to another founder of yours, he told me that besides your due diligence process, which is very thoughtful, and you guys come to your own consensus and you really, you know, create a really strong thesis based on each individual investment you make, is also post-investment.
Yes.
So, you know, where you guys really go to bat for the teams you do.
Yeah. Look, we all at Vine are trying to create a product and experience, which is very rare in venture, that the more you get to know us and the more you spend time with us, actually the experience only gets better. And that is what I would describe as like a true luxury good or service. So you might meet me, but once I introduce you to Barack or Adam, it'll become even more clear what we can provide. And when you can say to yourself, hey, like there's a gamut of things or a basket of things that I need as a founder, and this firm cannot just do one of those things, but 2, 3, I don't know, maybe they could do like 60% of the things I need them to do for me, you know, other things I can get from angels, et cetera. That gets really interesting really fast. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just mentioned Adam. For all those that don't know, we're talking about Adam Falcon, who you guys, I don't know, poached or from General Catalyst. How did that come about? Like, because we're talking about somebody that's been in the industry for, I don't know, 2 decades maybe.
Yeah.
You know, General Catalyst is one of the biggest funds in the world. And Vine is an upstart, 3.5, 4 years. You know, first time GPs going out and trying to build an incredible fund. How are you able to convince someone like that to come join you?
Yeah, I think it was a meeting of the minds of what's possible at Vine and the trajectory that Vine is on. We had invested in a couple of companies together. One of them is Goat Gaming in Israel. Some time ago, we'd both invested in a company called Row in the city. And so we knew of each other. We'd been swimming in similar circles. We'd been on boards together. And I think Adam saw firsthand like the evolution of the firm. For Adam, I know it's very important to be investing and having an impact in Israel. And we were one of those very rare firms with that is US HQ'd with a very heavy Israel focus. And having the ability to do something professionally that meets like your personal interests and your personal passions and what you want to dedicate yourself to, I think is a very powerful force. And it certainly took the right amount of time and like meetings to get comfortable that would work. One of the things that's just like obvious when you look at photos of us standing next to each other is that there are young people and then there are older people. And I think what I could not be more pleased about, more grateful for, what I could not have envisioned in my wildest dreams is how well those two experiences of older and younger have merged. It's so powerful for entrepreneurs because certainly Vine has experienced its successes. And of course, we've also worked with companies that have not worked out, and you learn, you know, equally as much, if not more so, of helping founders through those difficult times. Mm-hmm. But Adam, by nature of how long he's been in the industry, has, you know, a multiple on that. And now we can bring that knowledge, that wisdom to bear to our founders. And Adam's incredibly generous with his time and in his network. And I've already seen it with some of our companies that have been, you know, approached for various types of transactions that like, you know, are really sensitive situations. And Adam has like really tremendously helped them through thinking through those situations. Yeah. That's another important thing about Vine. Like we don't come to founders with the perspective that like we're smarter than them or are better equipped to make a decision than they are. It's more about because we have this shared reality with them on what they're building by nature of how well we understand their business, that we can actually help them logically think through something as opposed to like, this is what we think because this is generic, like startup mumbo jumbo.
Right. I like the startup mumbo jumbo. Which most of the industry is part of. But when it comes to Adam specifically, and you guys have also Idan that joined from Israel, you know, I know Eric thinks big. And, you know, very, very big. What was the initial conversation with people like to recruit them? Was this something on your guys' mind constantly saying, hey, let's recruit these experienced people, have them join in order to build a Divine brand? Or like, how'd you approach Adam? How'd you approach Idan? Like,
it's first principles thinking on like what are your competitive advantages and what do you need in order to expand those.
Right.
And so for us, as we're thinking about growing from being a pre-seed and seed emerging firm to accelerating that in our, just like our founders are trying to do, accelerating our time to being the obvious top 3 choice in every single city that we're in for founders. Like, how do you do that? And bringing people onto your team that can help king make companies, because that's part of like what the venture kind of like, are you in the top 3 to 5 choice for a founder is all about. Like, have these people demonstrated that they're working with companies that I aspire to be like. And again, like you pointed out correctly, like we're a 4-year-old firm, and bringing someone aboard who can speak to even more successes than we've had can make it very clear to a founder of why it's worthwhile to take capital from Vine when their alternatives are all the tier 1 firms that we know of. Right. With Adam, he's somebody that is historically done a lot of investing internationally, specifically Israel, and specifically in New York and Boston, on the application layer, right? So that gives us good coverage on the application side. With Idan, you have somebody who is a 2 times exited cyber founder, is like beloved in Israel and by anyone who knows him. He's also a very passionate social justice leader, and he helps us a lot with cyber and infra. And then that's complemented by Gary, which is a very unique addition in him being Eric's dad, who, you know, his career spent as a CIO for General Electric. And so he's bringing the CIO buyer perspective to any B2B motion company or founder that we're working with, as well as can tee up, you know, his cohort and his peer set and people that he's mentored are, you know, CIOs and executives at Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies.
Interesting. So you're having really these experienced people here, really, it's really incredible because you're able to have these people come mentor you and Eric, and the rest of the team.
I certainly learn a lot from them. And if I just told you that, like, it's really, I'm trying to prove something to myself, then like the ability to improve by learning from those people, that's so meaningful.
Right.
It makes it even more exciting to come into work every day. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
Yeah. What do you love most about the job?
It's a good thing that's like a hard question to answer because there's so many things to like. And despite the fact that like I, like anyone, like naturally feel stress in tough situations, I'd say the true like rush or joy for me is really working closely with founders to help them in very critical, sensitive moments. Right. That if I reflect back to like the running days of like feeling pain in the last like mile of a race or something like that, and sort of the hormones that you get from that and the feeling once you've like accomplished the task, like being in that stress, in that like pain, et cetera, with somebody else and working through it with them to get to the other side of that finish line, so to speak. And sometimes like you get what you're after. And the truth is, sometimes you don't. Right. But working through that with other people is a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's really the meaningful connections.
Yes.
That we're able to build up with the people we work with. I see a lot of times when I come here to come to your office, and not a lot, but the times that I come, I see a lot of younger, new VCs coming to you for advice, like wanting to start off their fund, that wanted to get into venture. Like, how are you guiding them? What are you telling them?
My advice is not even so specific to venture, but it is specific to like, is this really what you want to be doing, and committing yourself to like, no matter what, like, to really excel in it because of how competitive it is. And to start something from scratch is going to require, as you know, just your entire energy, force, and dedication. You will not get far without that. And so you just have to be very, very sure that this is exactly what you want to be doing for reasons that are going to motivate you for a while to come. Because if it's something fleeting, if it's just like, now is a good time to be in venture, we have like a new technology wave with large language models, et cetera, like, that may or may not be, we may or may not be in a bubble. We may or may not hit a wall in the advancements of those LLMs and what they could do. So it really needs to be a motivating factor that's going to carry you on for a while to come. And of course, it's like, as you said, what unique reason does a founder have, if it's in venture, to take capital from you? And specifically, if you're doing like what we're doing, which is co-leading or leading those rounds, what's the merit by which you can have that seat with a founder? Because there's only one or two of those seats available.
Right. Do you have any good stories of how like you merited that seat, you won a deal?
I mean, one of my most memorable, one of my favorite ones is with Itamar at Kodo, and now he's an Israeli founder, and he was actually the first meeting I took in Israel when I had moved to Tel Aviv, and as we were talking about, and he's a second-time founder, sold his first company to Alibaba, and ran their R&D center in Tel Aviv. And as well as I do that, second-time founders in Israel have their choice of like anyone that they want to work with from the venture side. And so this is like one of the most competitive processes where, he had 4 or 5 other offers. And at a time when we're kind of like least well known in Israel, because we had just hired Dean Meyer to run the show for us in Israel, but otherwise like had done a couple of investments and did not have the presence. And so it was demonstrating a lot of what we talked about in terms of the customers we could bring to bear, how thoughtful we could be to him very rapidly, because we have some LPs who are early investors in Alibaba, which he was familiar with. Like we brought those in to kind of like, throw hey, these are some of the really big connections that we have, to put that in front of him. But he was also taking as big of a bet on us as we were on him, that we would both like evolve and like, be worthy of each other. And that was one of the first investments that helped put us on the map really in Israel, because of the number of elite firms that we beat out to work with him.
Right.
Yeah. And the relationship I have with him is super close. He's in one of the fiercest and most competitive markets, which is AI for coding. And kind of the level of founder energy that you have to bring every day to operating a business in that space is astronomical. And so I'm so happy that I get to see him in this office every day. I get inspired by his level of work ethic and dedication. Yeah.
Wow. What other things? Because interesting, like you mentioned, to put yourself on the map. If you look at, let's say we take Israel specifically, because you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
Vine now has, you have one of the buildings, one of the temples, actually, right in Sirona. You really built up an incredible presence there. Like, what else have you guys done in order to build up that really good brand?
Yeah. I have to give a lot of credit in this to Eric. As you know, he's he's an observant Jewish person. And so he organized like daily prayer every day at the office. And that's brought a whole community of people together every single day to pray together there. And that demonstrates to people that we're very true about who we authentically are. It doesn't, for Eric, it may be religion. For other people on our teams, it may be something else that's like so meaningful to them that it's like so outwardly visible. Right. And I think, in a time where there's a lot of inauthenticity, people, and especially those people who are really high agency, are attracted to others who are willing to be so outspoken about the issues or matters that they care about. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always like to say that Vine, I think, is probably the most spiritual venture capital fund there is.
Yeah. That's a very no one else has said that. It's an incredibly kind thing to say. I think there's so much value in ways in which like a personal belief in religion can overlap with like the professional exercise of like venture capital. Like ultimately, like there's a lot of compatibility in values and ethics and how you comport yourself. I think it also, when you're part of like, say, a religious community, it gives you, because you have more shared beliefs, there's probably a higher instance of sort of people checking in on you, people inviting you to things, et cetera. And I think that's like also, if you're doing that on the personal side, it's very likely that you're going to do that on the professional side. And you know how lonely it is to be a founder. So now you get to interact with you see a person taking care of others, inviting them to events, inviting them into their home, et cetera. And you must imagine that, hey, if this is the way the person behaves kind of like in their personal life, then this must, it's reasonable to assume this is like likely how they would behave towards me in a professional context. Right. And being a founder can be so lonely. It's like worthwhile to be certain that the venture partner you're working with is there to take care of you.
Yeah. I always tell new founders that don't worry about the fund.
Yeah.
Focus on the partner you're going to be specifically working with, because that's how your experience is going to be.
Yeah.
So you can have a tier one, but if you're not working with a partner that you like, or a partner that's going to be there for you, going to have your back, it makes no difference if you have a tier one investor or not in your thing. You mentioned before the story of Kodo and how you won that investment. I want to talk about the polar opposite of that, losing investment that really stings. I didn't have to mention names of the company, but you could just...
I think the hardest part about losing an investment, like sort of breaking up with with a girlfriend or something, is like if you don't, at least for me, I can't speak for everyone, like part of it is just losing. It sucks to lose. Mm-hmm. The other part is like if you don't know the reason why. Right. So if you've ever been ghosted or something similar, you're like, well, why is this happening to me? What's going on? But maybe that says something about the other person as well. But I think anytime we lose, it's really important to understand the reason why the founder didn't want to work with us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thankfully, it doesn't happen that often. But when it does, the number one thing I'm asking is why. And you can generally get a sense for something's not trending the way you want it to trend in the conversations with a person during a very active like raise. And so you're sort of poking and prodding with the questions of like, what are you really looking for, et cetera. Sometimes people are just not willing to be that direct about it. I think it's quite different in Israel. Like people are very willing to be direct about like, here's what you have, here's what I need. How do we bridge that gap? And that's how I see it. I think like there's a lot of common ground at any time when we're meeting with the founder. If we're at the point where we're like, we've issued a term sheet and, we're doing everything we can to make sure that term sheet gets signed. I lost my train of thought.
What is the next step for Vine? And
Yeah.
how do you see Vine building out over the next decade?
Yeah. The ultimate goal is to become that top 3 choice in every city that we're in. Right now, we have the strongest product market fit in Israel, in New York, in the superhighway that goes between it. The next step is really like building out more of our presence in San Francisco. And across the firm, it's making sure that we're part of more category defining businesses. So either being very precise on the companies that we invest in to ensure that they're going to be part of that next set of companies that goes the distance. Or should I say, or after investing in those companies, assuming we earn the right to win, is king making them so they can be one of those.
Right.
And we'll do everything that we can and continue evolving the firm in a way that increases the likelihood of both of those things.
Right. What are any concrete steps you guys are going to do?
So expect very shortly from us a new kind of house office in San Francisco that Demeron's opening up. That we'll host a lot of events there. It'll have like a bedroom there for any of us to stay at and do kind of like longer periods of time in San Francisco. Also for any of our founders that are raising there. Expect Gary's involvement with more of our companies and helping king make them, and expect Adam's involvement in helping all of our founders navigate company defining moments,
right.
Especially as it relates to like certain transactions, and then expect Barak, Demeron, Eric, myself to continue evolving as people, and that's just the investment team. Obvious, yeah. We have someone here in New York, and Alex, who's like new to pre-seed and seed investing, but has like demonstrated like an exceptional aptitude. He came to Vine from OpenView. He's got the potential to be the next kind of like rock star investor in New York. So I'd expect more out of him too.
Wow. Well, I could tell I'm very excited, having seen, Vine from inception to where it is now and going through all the constant, changes and the growth that has happened to it. I'm excited to see what happens over the next decade to Vine Ventures, but also I'm excited to see what happens to you.
Yeah, 100%.
How you grow. I've seen you grow from day one to now, and I'm sure you'll continue to grow. And so I'm very excited to really see what's going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind that, Vine will be one of those, like you mentioned, top 3 choices in all those cities you mentioned, and God willing, around the world.
Yeah.
As long as we continue to do our part, do good and do right by the founders, do right by people. And we always have to remember, we're only as good as our next deal. That's it.
It's true. It's very true.
And so I want to thank you very much for really coming and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome. And it goes both ways. Like, you're a very memorable person, and you have like a gravitational pull towards you of being like a very kind, good person that'll do well for others. And I think that'll serve you also very well. So I'm excited to see your firm grow as well.
I appreciate a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you so much for listening to this conversation with Dan. I hope you took something that you're able to apply to your personal or professional life today. Now, before you go, please do me a favor. Go ahead and subscribe on whichever platform you're listening on. So if you're watching this on YouTube, press that red button. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, press follow. And one more thing, don't forget to leave a review, because when you do that, you will give the ability for someone else to find this podcast, and they will be able to see how amazing these conversations are, that we will be able to inspire them too. So please go ahead, give a follow, leave a comment, and I hope to see you back very soon with a brand new episode.